In the first video, I talked about giving away a TRM Atom. Does this look like a TRM Atom to you guys? This is a brand spanking new TRM Shadow. And for your chance to win, that'll be in the finale video where the TRM Shadow dukes it out with the winner of these 5 knives. I highly recommend you watch these videos because that entry may require some information from these in order to be entered to win this. Today, we will be judging these 5 knives based on their quality and design. For that, I'm talking about looks. We're going to be talking about their fit and finish. We're going to be talking about, does the design make sense? And last but not least, we're going to be talking about their fidget factor, and it may not happen in that order, but we will be hitting all 4 of those topics, along with announcing the giveaway for the Harvester. So let's get to it. First, we are going to start with looks. So starting with the Superfreek, I think this is an absolutely gorgeous knife. I love the G10, the way it looks, that black and gray with this red accent. The pocket clip on all Benchmades kind of looks stupid and phallic, but that is what it is. This tall blade face with this DLC coating, I think looks awesome. And this would probably be my #1 pick. But for some reason, you have this really tall blade, and then you have this neck that comes up there, and there's something about that that threw me off. So moving on to the MK1. This is kind of your basic looking knife. This has very, very similar lines to the Benchmade Superfreek. They are kind of related in a sense that the Benchmade Griptilian was their staple until the Ritter Hogue kind of took over that. I mean, he was the designer after all. So you can see a lot of the design cues coming from it. And I don't think this neck looks as egregious as this for some reason. This has that arc there. This has the slight ramp. I think this tumbled blade finish looks pretty good looking. This is just a really good looking knife. But the problem is, it's just a good looking knife, right? There's nothing special about it, and I don't even really like the profile of it. The profile with this neck, there's something about it. So moving on to the Mini Adamas. This thing would also potentially be #1 if it didn't have this like Emerson-esque or whatever this thing is going on here. This ramp just throws me off all the time with this guy. Everything else, this like, what is this? This cobalt coating or whatever this type of coating is on this screwwear blade. It has these beautiful micarta scales that are going over the top. It doesn't have your typical Benchmade ugly pocket clip. This, for all purposes' sake, I think looks really good. But that little mohawk right here, again, like just on looks, guys, I'm not a fan. Getting onto the Benchmade Redoubt, I actually really love the profile of this. I love the look of this blade. And then it's got this coating that I'm not sure is super functional because it does feel texturous. So as you're slicing through things, it might not, it might restrict you a little bit, but I think it looks good. Now, these G10 frame or whatever you want to call this, I think do look good from afar. As you get close, I mean, they kind of look cheap, just as you would expect with an all G10 frame or ever, and I don't even remember what this is. But overall, the profile of this, I think, looks phenomenal. Last is kind of an oddball, and that's the K320. The K320 does have this really, really aggressive, kind of tactical look to it, and it doesn't have your typical blade profile. I think this looks, I have no complaints with the way this looks. Even this pocket clip, which will get a complaint eventually because these ridges are totally unnecessary, it just looks really, really good. So I really don't have a complaint with this. This ramp here, you guys may say, well, you knocked on all those. This one seems like it makes more sense when you stick it next to one. It kind of has this arc that fits the design instead of just a shot up. So I do really, really like this one as well. If I were to rank these, I am going to actually give the Redoubt the best looking. I don't like the colors as much, but the profile of it looks phenomenal in my opinion. I love that straight back profile look. Next would have to be the K320. I think the K320 on the total opposite end of the spectrum doesn't look like your generic knife. I think it's pretty cool looking, and so that's going to come in at #2. #3 is going to be your Superfreek. I think it's despite having this neck right here, it is the black and grays. It's kind of stylish. That's going to end up as your #3. Your #4 is going to be your MK1. I think that this is just a generic looking knife. There's no reason to hate on it. And your #5, the Mini Adamas. Guys, this thing just, if this was straight, this would be really, really cool. But then you have this finger guard here that I think looks a little obtrusive as well. I don't know. As far as looks go, you get rid of that. This might have taken #1, but overall, I can't stop looking at it. So currently, for points, we have a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys may be noticing that I'm missing a knife here. I don't have my Manix 2. I actually took the Manix 2 out of the whole contest because I don't have a stock Manix 2. My Manix 2 is decked out to the gills, and I kept finding myself judging it based on that as opposed to the stock, G10 Manix 2. So it wasn't fair for me to throw that in here, and I really had no idea how to do it, so I ended up taking that out of the contest completely. Fit and finish, let's take a look at each one of these. So the Benchmade Superfreek, there is no back and forth, there is no up and down. It feels pretty solidly locked up. There is no detent lash, but check this out, this came off centered. Wah. And congrats to Mr. Grumpy Grunt for winning the first part of this giveaway, which is the Finch Knife Harvester. And one thing that it does have is it has this lock stick in here for this axis lock, which I know a lot of them have, but it also has like this back and forth play that feels just really weird to me. That is very annoying when you're thinking about fit and finish in particular. Other than that, I have no complaints. I think this thing's put together pretty damn well. The pocket clip didn't come loose. There's no other complaints other than this flipping back and forth, which is major, guys. And then, this being off center, I don't consider that as major because I can fix that. Next, let's check out the Benchmade Redoubt because in the same family, some of the same problems actually. This is a little off center. It's not quite as egregious as the Superfreek, but in checking for the off centerness, you can see that, look at the tip. There is something wonky going on with that blade grind, which led me to check out this blade grind itself. And if you check out this primary bevel, or secondary bevel rather, it gets real small as it's right here. My freaking camera will focus. It gets real small here, and then it kind of widens out, and you have this bevel out right here where you can tell either the blade stock is thin at this point, so it kind of comes further back, or thicker. If it was thinner, it would go further in, so it might be thinner down here and thicker right here. But it does create for this almost recurve looking style right here, and I know that that's not supposed to be like that. That is a major issue for me. Another major issue for me with this fit and finish is when you're kind of moving this around, you actually feel a little bit of clicking and clacking due to the FRN or G10, whatever this is. I think it's FRN. It's kind of like shifting together, and that's not a good thing. So other than those three items, it's not, anything major. It's just stuff that we're nitpicking for fit and finish wise. As far as accessing the crossbar locking system, this does have some wiggle back and forth, which is rather annoying, but I haven't noticed it locking up as much as the Superfreek. Sticking with the Benchmade theme, I was checking out the mini Adamas, and once I got to this, I'm looking, and it's having the same issues. I'm really thinking that these blade stocks are either that secondary or the primary grind right here isn't even, or the blade stock itself isn't the exact same coming in. And I know that, it's not a big deal to most, but if you're checking out fit and finish, you have to look at these things. Now, there isn't much play in the axis lock. There is no back and forth. There is no up and down. As far as detent lash, there is none. And this is pretty damn centered. So the only thing I really have to complain about on the mini Adamas is that edge bevel itself. Let's take a look at the K320. So this thing, no detent lash, no back and forth, no up and down, no pivot lash. The action on it's pretty damn good. There is no play with this crossbar locking system. And even the pocket clip, everything's solid. I see no gaps. This G10 inlay is done oh so well, which none of these really have an inlay to show off, so kudos to that. My only complaint again is it came slightly off center. Not the end of the world, but if I had to nitpick anything, it is off center there. So there's that for the contest. Now last, we're going to talk about the Hogue MK1. Let's check the centering because everything else has been off center. This thing is damn near perfectly centered. There is no detent lash. There is no back and forth. There is no up and down. This edge bevel seems virtually perfect. Same thing with the K320. So what I've noticed in comparing these is Benchmade kind of half-asses their edge bevels when Hogue definitely doesn't. And if you've owned a Hogue, you know exactly what I'm talking about because these things come wicked sharp out of the box. The long story short is with this one, I have zero complaints. Therefore, the MK1 is going to be in first place for the fit and finish. The K320 is going to come in a very close second. The mini Adamas, just having that edge bevel a little off, is going to make it third. The Superfreek is going to come in fourth place. Now, yes, you have this play, and then it doesn't have that edge bevel issue as much that the other ones do. So it's going to be not as centered, and it does have a little bit of play and stick there, but this one has the most egregious version of that primary edge bevel. I keep calling it primary. The most egregious just edge here that just drives me nuts. And then this clicking and clacking here really makes this fit and finish feel off. Even if it's not, I don't know that this was a good idea to do, the FRN on FRN type of situation.
So let's talk about fidget factor, guys. These are all going to be fidget monsters due to this crossbar locking system. The Superfreek, this thing's pretty darn good to go. And for the record, I did put some white litho grease on these just to kind of help them along for the contest, but they all got the same amount. So fidget factor, you can reverse flick it, you can thumb flick it, you can do the crossbar locking fling out. I was going the wrong way under camera. The Superfreek is really, really fun to fidget with, short of the stick on this crossbar locking system. Yes, it's going to ding it again because that is going to cause your fidgeting kind of an annoyance.
For the MK1, the fidget factor all around, I could not find an issue. It feels ultra smooth. It's virtually drop shut. You can do the same thing there. I mean, all over, the detent on this is pretty darn good. You can see that I haven't failed it whatsoever. I have no complaints on this. I think this is actually really, really nice. The Benchmade Mini Adamas. Now, this thing is a hoss, and it kind of cheats. Why is it a hoss? This blade stock, despite being the smallest knife on the table, is actually the thickest. This is coming in at 140 thousandths. So it's going to give it some heft behind that flip, and you definitely feel it. Now, I want you guys to listen to something. There's something so satisfying about the acoustics of this. I have no complaints on the MK1. I love fidgeting with the Mini Adamas. Total opposite spectrum, we get to the Benchmade Redoubt. Now, there's no issues with this. As you can see that I can kind of get it, but, you know, I'm not intentionally doing these failures, guys. Those failures are coming naturally by this knife. It's naturally, I could probably carry this more than most of these too, because I've had this before, all 4 of these, and it still just doesn't feel like it's broken in. It's just, And then even more so, listen to this one. You hear that ugly, dull thud? It's not satisfying whatsoever to fidget with. Like, that dull thud just kind of like, even if you can get it there, right? It's like, ugh. Last on the table, we have the Sig Sauer, or the K320. Now, this one is awesome. I love doing that slow roll right there, but you can thumb flick it, you can reverse flick it, you can do this. Everything that you could do with the others, you can do with this one. It just has an opening slot. Where I am going to ding this one is that this opening slot isn't the easiest to access, despite feeling kind of like the most tactical, you know, probably close to one of the hardest used knives on this table. It's difficult to access this thing in gloves. I'm wearing some skin tight gloves, which makes it a lot easier, but if I was wearing anything less than those, it's going to be, you know, it's not going to fly out, say, like this thumb stud right here. That thumb stud is going to be really easy to access. This hole is just small. It's not difficult to get at, and the reverse flick works great, but if I know if I had some thicker gloves on, it's not going to work as well.
So to rank these, 1st through 5th, we are going to give the Mini Adamas the Fidget King, because that is just so satisfying with those acoustics. I love it.
Next, we're going to actually give it to the K320. Despite, you know, this opening hole, the sounds that this one makes are fantastic. And this knife is just, when you're fidgeting with this, it's quite addictive, guys, quite addictive. Next, we're going to go with the Hogue MK1. This I had no complaints on. It just doesn't have the acoustics that the K320 has. All in all, this is just fine. This is absolutely perfect if you see it. Next, we are going to go with the Superfreek. Now, this one should have scored higher, but that lock stick there drives me nuts to fidget with. So, therefore, you know what? You're going to get number 4. And last is this guy right here. Yep. So let's talk about how you enter to win one of these. I will be giving away one of these in my next video, and it's not going to be hard. I just want you to tell me 1 through 5, which one of these looks the best, all the way to the worst for each one. Real simple, just give me a ranking for each knife in the comments below. To get an extra entry, you take this video, you share it on social media, and then you post your link to that post below as well in a totally separate comment, and that'll get you a separate entry. And then don't forget, in the upcoming videos, we're going to be giving away a MICROTECH EXOCET donated by Patriot Knifeworks. If you guys haven't checked them out, go use my promo code EEDC for 5% off and check them out. They got some really cool stuff, and they got some Benchmades, if you're a Benchmade fanboy, that are kind of hard to find. So it's pretty cool, awesome site, easy to navigate, great people. Thank you for donating to this giveaway as well. Last, I forgot to mention, guys, you have to be following these people on social media in order to even be considered for the giveaway. If you are not, then I cannot consider you for the giveaway. All links will be in the description of this video. Please make sure you do so. So the last category, when we're talking about quality and design, we're going to be talking about, does the design make sense? Now I'm going to keep this very basic, guys. Let's start with the Superfreek. So this actually has a thinner blade stock than one would imagine. I believe this is coming in around 120 to 115 thousandths. Now, for being such a kind of overbuilt looking beefcake of a knife, you're going to say, why is the blade stock so thin? Well, it does have G10 scales with no liners, so that kind of leads into, hey, this makes sense because this is thin, this isn't going to be the strongest setup for the scales. I can get down with that. Ergonomically, it feels pretty darn good. The action on it, like we talked about with the fit and finish, it's pretty good. I don't feel the pocket clip at all. Even this little point right here, when I'm bearing down, it's right in the perfect spot. So I really have no complaints about the overall design choices that were made here. Maybe the M4, if you're going to make a slicier blade, I'm not sure M4 makes the most sense, especially if you're going to use Benchmade's heat treat, which we're not talking about. The MK1, This is very similar to the Benchmade Superfreek, except for the blade stock's going to be a little bit thicker. Not much. If I had to guess, 120 versus 115 or 130-ish. In hand, this feels really good, and you actually feel more locked in than the Superfreek, which some may like, some may not. So I'm not going to grade it on that, but I don't feel this pocket clip, and it's nice. It's a nice deep carry pocket clip. Feels just fine. Sits pretty deep in your pocket. The action, like I said, fantastic. So there's really no complaints here. My only complaint, and this is more of a subjective complaint, is this texturing on the scales. That's why I didn't really like the original MK1. It's not that I didn't appreciate it. It wasn't for me. It kind of felt weird. Well, after carrying this for a while, it grew on me, but I'm still not the biggest fan of this starburst pattern here. The mini Adamas is kind of a conundrum. I am very locked in, but I am tightly locked in. Yes, I can get all my fingers on there, but they feel scrunched. I can feel this pocket clip here. It does feel a little bit cumbersome. And the interesting point here is that this is the thickest blade stock of any of these knives, but it does have some full stainless steel liners, so it kind of makes sense. This is supposed to be a hard-use knife, right? Well, I don't know. Maybe the large Adamas, and the large Adamas definitely fixes this issue in my opinion, but why the hell do we have a thumb ramp here so that I can place my hand like this? This feels so unnatural. My thumb wants to fall here if I'm going to put it anywhere on the blade. This does not feel normal to me. I'm not sure that I like that at all. I would rather just see some jimping up here where my thumb is going to land. The tight feeling on this, they definitely made like the crew wear, the thick liners. It's definitely one that you're like, okay, hard use, let's go. But then even in hard use, this has to be comfortable. And with this pocket clip here, I definitely feel it. So I like the design. I love the knife. But if I'm grading it on does it make sense, I'm not entirely sure. The Benchmade Redoubt really does feel good in hand. I really don't feel the pocket clip that much. And due to, just the generic blade profile, I think this all just kind of looks like a normal knife. Jake and I always talk about and joke, it's kind of your knife's knife, there's nothing special about it. And so, yeah, sure, it makes a little bit of sense. I'm not sure why they put this coating on here to give it some texture because it does take away some of the sliciness of it. The other part that I'm really confused about is why all FRN? And you're still charging us $160. I'm not even to the value. That's a totally separate video. But that doesn't make too much sense to me. So, the design kind of makes sense being your knife, but I don't understand some of these. Aesthetically, it looks cool, but, in practical use, I'm not so sure. And last but not least, the K320. I love the way this flat on the blade comes out. Not that we're talking about the blade, but we're talking about the overall design. Doesn't make sense. So in hand, the blade tip is pointed kind of right in line with the way my thumb's going. So it's going to be really natural to feel. The ergonomics of this feels so good. I mean, god damn, these feel good. The action on it is amazing. In hand, it feels crazy good. One of my only complaints is this pocket clip here. It's so aggressive. I get the look, but it's gonna tear the crap out of anything you're wearing. Like if you have this in your pocket and you rub up against something, this is like a file. Just almost like if you were to take a cheese grater, you could probably grate cheese on that. And you're like, ugh. So that's one complaint on here, but realistically, overall, it's kind of built for this hard-use tactical, and I think it fits that bill. This is the CPM S30V, so it's not gonna be as tough as some of these blade steels out here, but in a folding pocket knife, I mean, unless you're the mini Adamas, which has that 140 thousandths thick. If this was 140 thousandths, I'd be a little irritated. It's probably coming in close to 130. But I think this is a pretty good design choice. I wish they had changed that pocket clip. Other than that, keep it the same. Love it. So in ranking these, I actually think the Superfreek's design kind of, takes the cake. It's lightweight. It's got this thin blade. Not 100% sure if I agree with the M4 on the blade, but everything else actually feels pretty darn good. So you're going to take number one. Number two is going to be the K320. I think this just nails everything. I think this is just overall a phenomenal knife and realistically could be changed out with the Superfreek for number one. Number three is definitely got to be the Hogue MK1. It's very, very similar to the Superfreek, and I have no complaints. These are kind of getting ranked based on day and time, right? It's hard to judge things that are so close. These two are not that hard to judge. I don't like this thumb ramp here. I don't like this thick pocket clip that you can feel on everything. Those two in the design don't make sense to me. It feels like they took the large Adamas, made it small, kind of like the Malice, and I don't know that it hits its mark completely. And then number five is the Benchmade Redoubt. I don't like the stuff on the blade. I mean, that changes the sliceability. You have this super deep carry pocket clip here that kind of is just dumb, and then your stuff gets stuck in this tiny little spot up here. You can see how these fit together right there with that little Lego-esque style, and you're kind of like, okay, that's fine. The action on it's just... As far as making sense, I mean, the Benchmade Redoubt, to me, makes the least amount of sense out of everything on this table. Let's talk about the overall points. The Superfreek comes in at 12 points. The Hogue Mark 1 coming in one better at 13. The Benchmade Mini Adamas has a whopping 11. Wah, wah. But you could do worse because the Redoubt's coming in at a total of 8 points. And uniquely enough, we have the Hogue K320 coming in at 16 points for taking second place in every single category. Never taking first and yet taking the whole thing down, taking it home. And you are the first winner of this 3-part series. That doesn't mean the Hogue K320 is taking it down completely, guys. There are still 2 videos to go with their own categories, and there will be point assignments in each one of those. At the end of it, we are going to take who won the most in place. This doesn't take 16 points onto the next episode. This is going to take 5. This is going to take 4. This is going to take 3, 2, 1. That's how this is going to work, guys, because otherwise I have to have the same amount of topics, same amount in each video. It's just going to get confusing. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys stay sharp, stay safe, and have a great freaking rest of your day.